She hid a piece of bread in her bag, even after her husband came home rich. Amara Bennett Lennox is 25, a black woman who once ruled a mansion in an off-shoulder satin dress and black heels. She signed generous checks to the staff at the long dining table, never knowing the balance was almost gone. Her husband is Seo Do-hyun. The Korean Mafia calls him the Quiet One. A black koi fish climbs the left side of his neck, up toward his jaw. He flew to Seoul and left one cold text behind. "Stop asking questions," signed Darcy. Then a stranger in a brown pinstripe suit came to the gate. A foreclosure notice. The mansion was secret collateral. Now it was going to auction. She fought. She sold the jewelry, the bags, the dresses. She kept one wine ring box she would never sell. She lost the court action. She dismissed the staff with full pay. She had one promise to hold on to. He would find her here, at this gate. So she stayed. Mansion to a rented car to the bare ground, salvaged suitcases beside her, a torn sleeve on a wine-brown dress. But the reason his phone never rang again was not what anyone believed. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Amara pressed the calculator key a fourth time and got the same number. She set the pen down and looked at the ledger, at the long column of withdrawals in her own neat hand, and then at the balance under it. 3 months ago, that figure had 4 more digits. She dragged her thumb along the paper as if the ink might smear into something larger. The dining table could seat 20. Tonight it held 1 woman, 1 ledger, and a cooling cup of tea she had forgotten to drink. She wrote the next check anyway. Gloria's name, the full monthly wage, and a little more on top because the woman had stayed on through a summer of unpaid rooms and unanswered calls. Amara tore the check along the perforation and squared it against the others. Her heels clicked once on the marble when she stood. The sound traveled. That was the new thing about the house. How far a single sound could go now that the rooms behind her had emptied. 6 months ago, Darcy had flown to Seoul. Business, he said. He had kissed the inside of her wrist at the airport gate and told her the trip would be short. She had believed him because believing him had never once cost her anything. The first weeks had been easy. He called at strange hours, his voice low and tired and hers, and told her small, true things, the rain in Seoul, a name he trusted, a name he did not. She had gone to sleep with the phone warm against her cheek. Then the calls grew shorter. Then they came as messages. Then the messages began to read like a lawyer had touched them, and she had told herself, a busy man delegates, even his affection, because affection was one more account to be managed. She counted the weeks the way she counted the accounts, precisely and against her own comfort. Now she walked the checks down the east corridor herself, past the room where the Persian rug used to lie. A pale rectangle marked the floor where it had been. She did not know who had taken it or when. She only knew the rectangle. "You're up late." Gloria stood in the kitchen doorway, a dish towel over one shoulder, salt and pepper hair still pinned in its neat low bun. "So are you." "I don't sleep when the accounts are open." Gloria nodded at the checks in Amara's hand. "You keep paying everyone but yourself. Everyone but me can leave." Amara held out the top check. "This is yours. There's extra." Gloria took it and did not look at the amount. She looked at Amara instead, at the shadow that had settled under her eyes over the last weeks, at the dress that still fit but hung differently now. "You've stopped eating dinner at this table." "I eat," standing at the counter. "That's not eating." Gloria folded the check without reading it. "When did he last call?" Amara turned back toward the corridor. The question did not deserve a lie, and the truth was too small to say out loud. so she said nothing and let her heels answer for her down the hall. Amara! Gloria rarely used the name. It stopped her. A house doesn't empty itself. Rugs don't walk out. Somebody's carrying things out that side door, and it isn't the girls, because I count them in and I count them out. Then who? That's what I'm asking you. Gloria came a step closer, lowered her voice, though there was no one to hear. 2 men came in a van in June, said they were from the office in the city, had papers, took the long clock from the hall and the paintings off the gallery wall. I called your husband's line to ask. Nobody picked up. Amara had noticed the clock. She had told herself it had gone for cleaning. She saw now that she had been telling herself a great many things for cleaning. Why didn't you say? Because you looked like a woman holding a full glass across a crowded room. I didn't want to be the one made you spill it. Gloria folded the towel over her arm. But the glass is going to spill, child. Better it spills with somebody standing next to you. Amara held the look a moment longer than was comfortable, then broke it and walked on down the hall. In the study she sat and opened the second ledger, the private one, the one no staff had seen. Here she kept the real math. 2 accounts had gone quiet in March. A third had shrunk to a number that made her breathe through her mouth. She had told herself these were transfers, that Darcy moved money the way other men moved furniture, without warning and always with reason. She checked her phone, no calls. 1 message, delivered that afternoon, still unopened because she had been afraid of it. She opened it now. Stop asking questions about the accounts. Handle the house. This is being managed. Darcy. She read it twice. The words were his. The rhythm was not. Darcy did not sign his messages. In 6 years of marriage, he had never once written his own name to her, because a man does not introduce himself to his wife. She typed back. Managed by whom? Her thumb hovered. She deleted the question mark, then the whole line, then wrote it again without punctuation, because a question felt like begging, and she would not beg. She sent it. The message sat there, delivered, unread. She watched the screen until it dimmed, and then she watched her own reflection in the black glass. The house made a sound above her, a beam settling, or the wind finding a loose pane. She had learned the difference between the house's sounds and a person's. This was the house. She went up the main stairs with the ledger under her arm. On the landing, she passed the tall mirror and did not slow for it. She knew what it held. A woman in a black off-shoulder dress that had cost more than most people's cars, standing alone in a house that echoed, holding a book of numbers that were disappearing. In the bedroom, she set the ledger on the nightstand, on the side that had been his, because her own side was full of the small debris of a woman managing a crisis alone. Receipts, a magnifying glass for the fine print, a second phone she kept charged in case the first one failed. She did not undress. She sat on the edge of the mattress and pulled off one heel, then held it, and did not reach for the other. The thing she would not let herself think arrived anyway, the way it did every night at this hour. He is not answering because he cannot. She pushed it down. A man like Darcy was never the one who could not answer. A man like Darcy was the one who decided whether other men answered. She held to that. It was the last handrail she had. Morning came gray, and the house was colder than the season warranted. She found the reason on the ground floor. The heating in the west wing had shut off. Not broken, shut off. She stood at the thermostat and pressed it, and got nothing. And then she found the service notice slid under the side door, the one the staff used, where she was not meant to see it. The account for the utilities was 30 days past due. She read the notice standing up, in the cold, in yesterday's dress because she had slept in it. 30 days. She had written that check herself, she was certain, in the spring. She remembered the pen, the date, the small satisfaction of a paid bill. She went to the study and opened the ledger and found the entry. Paid. She had paid it. The money had left the account, and the account it had left was one of the 3 that had gone quiet. She sat with that for a long moment. If the money had left her hand and never reached the company, then someone stood between her hand and the world, taking. She did not have a name for that someone. She only had the shape of the space they occupied. Gloria. Her voice carried to the kitchen without her raising it. Who has access to the household accounts? Gloria came in drying her hands. You, and Mr. Lennox, and the office in the city that pays the vendors. The office in the city. Amara had never spoken to the office in the city. Darcy had set it up before the wedding. A firm of men in gray suits who managed the machinery of a rich man's life so that the rich man never had to. Do you have a number for them? There's a card in the kitchen drawer, she called from the study, standing, the way she made herself do difficult things. A woman answered on the second ring, and took her name and asked her to hold, and the hold lasted long enough that Amara counted the pale rectangle on the floor twice. Mrs. Lennox. A man's voice now, smooth, unhurried. How can we assist? The utilities on the West Wing were cut. The account shows I paid them in April. I'd like to know where the payment went. A pause. Papers. Or the sound a man makes when he wants you to think there are papers. Mrs. Lennox, all household disbursements are being consolidated under a single directive at this time. I'm not able to itemize individual line movements. Consolidated by whom? By instruction. Whose instruction? Mr. Lennox's office has asked that these questions be directed to Mr. Lennox. She held the phone very still. I am Mr. Lennox's wife. I sign these accounts. You're a signatory on 2 of them, ma'am, as of the most recent restructuring, he said. Restructuring. The way a doctor says a word he does not want to repeat. I'd suggest you take this up with your husband directly. Is there anything else? She set the phone down without answering, because there was nothing to say that would not sound like the begging she had sworn off. As of the most recent restructuring. She had signed no restructuring. She turned the sentence over and found the barb in it. Someone had changed the shape of her marriage's money on paper, and had done it with enough authority that a stranger in a gray office spoke of it as settled fact. She went to the drawer in the study, where the important papers lived. The deed to the house, the marriage certificate, the folder of documents Darcy had handed her once, early on, and told her to keep, because a wife should know where the ground under her feet came from. She opened the folder now, and read the deed for the first time in 6 years. All the way to the bottom, past the parts she had skimmed as a bride. The house was hers and his, that much was true, but there was a second page clipped behind the first, newer, the paper whiter than the rest, and it named the property as security against an obligation held by an entity she had never heard of, a lien. She did not know the word yet, but she knew the shape of it, the way she had known the shape of the man who stood between her hand and the world. She did not know that the money was nearly gone. She did not know that the whiter page meant the roof over her was pledged to a debt she had never taken. She only knew that the paper in her hand was newer than her marriage, and that her name was on it in a signature that curved the way hers did, but leaned the wrong way at the end. She held the page to the window light. The signature was good. It was very good. It was almost hers. Almost was the word that made her cold. She traced the loop of the letter that was not quite her letter, and thought about how a forgery like this got made. Someone had studied her hand. Someone had a document of hers to copy from, a canceled check, a signed card, the guest book from a party. Someone had sat with her signature in front of them long enough to learn its habits, and long enough to invent the one habit it did not have. That took patience. That took proximity. She did not like either word applied to a person she could not name. She set the page down flat and pressed both palms on the table until her hands stopped their small motion. Then she lifted them. The tremor was gone. She had learned that trick young, in a life before this house, when steadiness had been the only thing she owned outright. She put the folder back and did not sleep that night either. She sat at the dining table again, with both ledgers open and a third sheet of blank paper between them, and on the blank sheet, she began to write down everything she could verify with her own eyes. Dates, amounts, the names of the 2 accounts she could still see, and the third she could not. She wrote in small, careful letters. She wrote like a woman building a case, though she could not yet have said against whom. Near dawn, she wrote the last check of the household's money to Gloria's assistant, and to the groundsman, and to the girl who did the linens, each in full, each with a little more, because whatever was coming, she would not have it said that she took the last of the house down with the people who had served it. She stacked the checks and weighed them under the cold teacup. Her hand ached from the writing. She flexed it and looked at the row of names and did the arithmetic she had been avoiding. If every check cleared, and she was no longer certain any would, the household account would close at a figure that would not carry the house a single month. Not the taxes, not the men in the van, whoever they answered to, not the whiter page with its obligation she had never taken. She had married a man who owned the machinery that decided whether other men were paid. She had never once imagined standing on the wrong end of it. Then she opened her jewelry box, not to wear anything, but to look, to count, to know what she had that was hers alone and could be turned into money that no gray office could consolidate. Her hand stopped at a small box in the corner. Wine dark velvet, the ring Darcy had given her, not at the wedding, but a year after, on an ordinary Tuesday, for no reason he would name. She did not take it out. She only touched the lid and closed the box again and set it apart from the rest, in a separate place, because some things she would sell and some things she would starve before selling, and she wanted the line drawn before anyone forced her to draw it. At 7, the intercom at the front gate buzzed. She was not expecting anyone. The staff came through the side. Deliveries had stopped weeks ago, when the accounts they billed to stopped answering. She went to the panel by the door and pressed it, and the small gray screen showed a man at the gate she had never seen. Tall, thin, stooped, in a brown pinstripe suit that fit him badly, holding a brown briefcase against his chest with both hands like a shield. A clip-on badge caught the morning light at his lapel. Mrs. Lennox, his voice came thin through the speaker. Walter Brennan, I'm here regarding the property. He shifted the briefcase, and she saw a folded document in his other hand, and even through the small gray screen, she could see the red band printed across the top of it. I'm afraid this isn't the kind of visit that can wait. May I come to the gate? Amara looked at the red band on the paper. She looked at the wine-dark box she had just set apart on the table behind her. Then she pressed the button that opened the gate, and she went to meet him with the ledger still under her arm. Walter Brennan held the paper out before she reached him, as if the gate between them had never mattered. Amara took it with the hand that wasn't holding the ledger. The red band ran across the top like a wound. She read the first line. She read it again, slower, the way she had learned to read anything that meant to hurt her. Notice of foreclosure, she said aloud. Not to him, to herself, to make it real. The property is scheduled for public auction, Walter said. He shifted the briefcase to his other hand. 30 days. The date's on the second page. She turned to the second page. There was a date. There was a case number. There was a name for the entity that held the lien, and it was the same string of letters she had found on the newer page of the deed at 3 a.m, the page with her own signature forged so cleanly she had almost believed it herself. This house is collateral, she said. Was pledged as collateral, Yes. The obligation went into default. He said it the way a man reads a weather report for a city he will never visit. I'm only serving the notice, Mrs. Lennox. I don't set the terms. Lennox Bennett, she said. He blinked behind the steel frames. Ma'am? My name. If you're going to take my house, you can say all of it. He didn't correct his paperwork. He clicked the briefcase open against his own thigh, drew out a second document, and offered it across the gap. Acknowledgement of service. You sign. It confirms you received the notice. It doesn't waive anything. She looked at the pen he held out with the paper. A cheap pen, the kind that comes 40 to a box. She thought of the other signature, the perfect one, the one that had cost her everything without her hand ever touching a page. I'm not signing anything you brought to my gate, she said. Then I note refusal, and it's served anyway. He shrugged, and the shrug was almost an apology. Same result, slower. Then we'll be slow. Walter looked past her at the house. She watched him do it. She watched his small gray eyes travel up the long drive, over the fountain that had run dry in July, to the west wing where the heat had been cut and the windows held no light. A man pricing a thing he did not own. She stepped sideways, just enough to put herself back into the line of his sight. You've done this before, she said. Many times. He set the briefcase flat against the top of the gatepost, the way a man does when he means to stay a moment. Most of them scream. A few cry. One threw a shoe at me last spring. Missed. Hit her own car. He said it without a smile. A fact offered instead of comfort. You're neither. I'm reading, Amara said. Give me a minute to finish reading. He gave it to her. She read the third paragraph, the one that named the default date, and the date was March, and March was the month 3 accounts had gone silent, and she filed that away with the rest of what she already knew. Then, you know how it goes. Woman at the gate, no idea what her husband signed. She folded the notice in half along the red band. I'm going to be the one you remember. Something crossed his face that was not quite respect, and not quite pity. He clipped the briefcase shut. The auction number will be posted on the property within the week, he said. By law, it goes on the entrance. I'd take it off if I were you. People slow down to look. Posted where? The gate. Right here. He touched the iron with 2 fingers, almost gentle. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lennox Bennett. He said the whole name that time. Then he turned and walked to the brown sedan parked crooked on the shoulder, and he drove away, and the dust he raised hung in the still morning and settled slowly back onto the road. Amara stood at the open gate until she could no longer hear the engine. Then she went inside and started to sell her life. She began with the closet, because the closet lied the least. Dresses came off the rail in armfuls. She laid them across the bed, the satins and the silks, the one she had worn to Seoul the single time he had taken her, the one from the night he gave her the ring. She did not linger on any of them. Lingering was a tax she could no longer afford. Gloria found her at noon, with a phone pressed to her ear and a notepad on her knee. Consignment, Amara was saying into the phone. No, today I'll bring them to you. She wrote a number on the pad, underlined it, crossed it out, wrote a smaller one. That's fine. Yes, cash. Gloria waited until she set the phone down. You're selling the Valentino. I'm selling all of it. Amara. The jewelry too. The bags. Everything that has a resale sheet. She stood and pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes for one breath, then took them away. Everything except what's mine, actually mine, given, not bought to be looked at. Gloria's gaze moved to the dresser, to the small wine-dark box that sat apart from the open jewelry case, deliberately apart, the way you set aside the one plate you won't let a guest use. That stays, Gloria said. It wasn't a question. That stays. The older woman came into the room and began, without being asked, to fold. She folded the way she did everything, with method, smoothing each garment flat before it went into the bag. For a while, neither of them spoke. The house made its small sounds around them, a pipe knocking somewhere, a shutter loose in the wind on the dead west side. "There's a paper coming for the gate," Amara said. "A number, for the auction." Gloria's hands stopped on a sleeve. "When?" "Within the week," he said. "They nail it to the entrance. By law." She heard her own voice go flat, and hated it, and kept it flat anyway, because flat was the only tone that would hold. "People slow down to look," he said. "Then we take it down when it goes up. It's a crime to take it down. So is what they did to you, and nobody's arresting anyone for that." Gloria zipped the first bag shut with a hard pull. "Let them arrest me. I photograph well." Amara laughed. It surprised her, the laugh, short and real, and it cracked something loose in her chest that she pressed back down before it could spread. By evening, the bed was clear. 11 bags stood by the door. She drove 3 of them to the consignment house herself, in the one car that was still hers outright, and came back with an envelope of cash so thin it embarrassed the word envelope. She put it in the study drawer, the deep one, and locked it, and wrote the amount in the ledger in her own hand. The number did not move the way she needed it to move. She had known it wouldn't. But a woman who does nothing at least gets to keep her hands clean, and Amara had decided at the gate that morning she would rather have dirty hands and an empty house than clean hands and the same empty house. The lawyer's office smelled of old coffee and toner. Amara sat across a desk from a woman 10 years older than her, who kept apologizing before she had said anything worth apologizing for. "The signature," Amara said, "on the second deed page. It's forged. That's my whole case." The lawyer turned the copy toward the light. "It's good, I'll say that. If it's forged, it's professional. It's forged. I believe you." She set it down. "But belief isn't the standard. We'd need a forensic examiner, a handwriting expert, and we'd need to prove you didn't authorize it, which sounds simple and is not, because the entity holding the lien will produce a witness who says you did. They always have a witness. Then I get my own examiner." "That's $12,000 to start." The lawyer let it sit, "and the auction date doesn't move while we argue. We can file for an injunction to pause it. That's a separate hearing, a separate cost, and judges here don't like pausing auctions on a signature dispute. They see a lot of signature disputes." Amara looked at the envelope of consignment cash in her mind, the thin one in the locked drawer, and did the arithmetic she had been doing all day, the arithmetic that never came out. "File the injunction," she said. "I'll find the 12,000. She did not find the 12,000. She found part of it, and she stood in the hearing 3 weeks later in the charcoal gray wrap dress and the flat shoes, her hair pinned back because there had been no time and no reason to do more, and she watched a judge in a gray room read a file for 90 seconds and deny the injunction from the bench. "The petitioner offers a signature she claims is not hers," the judge said, "against a recorded instrument and a lender's sworn documentation. On this record, I can't halt a lawful sale." He looked at her, not unkindly, over the top of his glasses. "Get your expert. Bring me proof. Until then, the sale proceeds." "The sale is in 9 days, Amara said. "Then I'd move quickly, Mrs. Lennox." She did not correct him. She had learned which rooms were worth the whole name and which rooms would take it from her either way. Outside the courthouse, the lawyer touched her arm on the steps. "We keep going," she said. "After the sale, we can still sue for damages. We can. After the sale, there's no house. There's still a wrong. Wrongs are worth money." Amara looked at her, at the kind, tired face that had done its honest best inside a machine built to grind honest best into nothing. "Send me the final bill," she said. "I'll pay it. I always pay what I sign for." She started down the steps, then stopped and turned. "That's the difference between me and whoever did this. I pay for my own name." The staff she let go herself, one at a time, in the kitchen, so it happened at the warm table and not the cold one. She had made the calculation the night after the hearing. The house was going. She could not keep them, and she would not keep them on nothing, so she paid them out, full and then some, from the drawer that could not afford it, because the money was going to be taken from her one way or another, and she would rather it leave in the pockets of people who had earned it than in the account of a man who had forged her hand. The gardener took his envelope and would not open it in front of her, which was its own dignity. The girl who did the linens cried, and Amara held her and did not cry, because she had a rule now about who she cried in front of, and the list was very short. Gloria she saved for last. "You already paid me," Gloria said, when Amara slid the envelope across the table. "In the spring. Full, with extra. You think I don't know that check was more than my quarter? This is different. This is you giving away money you don't have to a woman who'd stay for free." Gloria pushed it back. "I'm not staff anymore, is that it? You're dismissing me too. I'm setting you free of a sinking house before it takes you down with it. I don't recall asking to be set free." Gloria folded her hands on the table. 54 years old. "My knees are gone, my husband's gone, my children are grown and scattered and call twice a year. This house is the last place anybody needed me at." Her voice did not shake, which made it worse. "You take that and you call it kindness." Amara looked at the envelope between them. She thought of the morning at the gate, the dust settling, the word auction in Walter Brennan's flat mouth. "There's going to come a day soon," she said, "when I can't pay you. Not less. Nothing. And I won't have you standing next to me for nothing. Then I'll stand next to you for nothing, and that'll be my choice, not yours to make for me." Gloria stood. She took the envelope, opened it, counted out half in front of Amara with slow, deliberate fingers, and set that half back on the table. "I'll take what a month is worth. Not a cent past what I earn. You keep the rest. You're going to need it more than I will, and I'd rather be owed by you than paid off by you." She put her half in her apron pocket. Then she untied the apron, folded it, and set it over the back of the chair, and for a moment the two of them looked at the white square of cloth as if it were a body laid out. "I'll go home tonight," Gloria said, "because you'll fight me if I don't, but you should know something before I do." She leaned on the table with both hands. A woman who gives away her last money is either a fool or she's decided she's not going to be poor for long. I've buried enough fools to know your face isn't one of them, so I'll be back. When it's bad. Don't waste breath telling me not to come." She walked out through the kitchen door into the dark, the way she had come and gone for years, and the house was quieter after than Amara had known a house could be. The paper went up on the gate on the 6th day. Amara heard the truck at dawn and was outside before the man had finished. He was young, embarrassed, working a staple gun into the iron, with a laminated placard clamped under his arm. He mumbled something about it being nothing personal and left fast, and then she was alone with it in the early gray. She made herself walk down the drive and read it the way she made herself read everything now. The case number, the date, 8 days out. And across the bottom, stamped large in black so it could be read from a slowing car, the auction lot number the property had been assigned. A number. Her home reduced to a number, stamped on the gate her husband had once carried her through. She stood with it for a long time. She did not take it down. Gloria was wrong about that. Or, Gloria was right, and Amara was the coward Gloria said she wasn't. Either way, the placard stayed, because tearing it off changed nothing about the date, and only gave them one more thing to say she'd done. Instead, she went back into the house and up to the dresser, and she took the wine-dark box in her 2 hands, and she opened it for the first time in months. The ring sat in its bed of dark velvet exactly as it had on an ordinary Tuesday a year into their marriage, when he had set it in front of her over breakfast with no occasion attached, which was the whole occasion. She did not put it on. She closed the box and slid it into the inside pocket of her bag, the pocket with the zipper, and she zipped it shut. Everything in this house had a number now, a resale sheet, a lot code, a line in a ledger. Everything could be counted and taken. Except this. This she would carry out on her own body when they came, and no paddle in any room would ever be raised for it. She went to the window that looked down the long drive to the gate, where the black number sat stapled to the iron, waiting for the day the cars would slow to read it. 8 days, she started counting. On the 4th day, the phone rang from a number she didn't know, and Amara answered before the 2nd ring. A woman's voice, clipped and foreign, read a script. "This is a courier verification for a secure device delivery to the Lennox residence. Please confirm the recipient is present to sign." Amara stood very still in the study. "I'm present. I'm here. A signature is required at handover. The device is registered to your household line." "Whose device?" Amara pressed the phone hard to her ear. "Who registered it?" A pause on the other end. Papers moving. "The order originated from Seoul. The registrant is listed only by account code." "Seoul." Her hand went flat on the desk. "Then send it. I'll sign anything. I'll be at the gate. Delivery window is within 72 hours. Please remain reachable." The line cut before she could ask a single thing that mattered. She held the dead phone a moment, then set it down like it might break. A device from Seoul, a secure line. He was reaching for her. After 6 months of texts that read like a lawyer wrote them, someone had finally cut a channel through, and it was coming here, to this house, to her hands. She did not sleep that night. She sat by the window facing the drive and watched the gate. The device never came. She learned later how the silence was made, though not that night. That night, she only knew the window closed. 72 hours passed. Then a 4th day. On the 5th, she called the courier number back and got a recording in a language she didn't speak. Then nothing at all when she tried again. What she couldn't know, sitting there, was that the delivery had been rerouted twice through an office in the city, signed for by a man in navy gloves, and logged as recipient unreachable, address in foreclosure. The device sat in a drawer 4 miles away. The channel Darcy opened to reach his wife had been closed by the one man he trusted to keep it open. Amara only knew the gate stayed empty, so she changed what she could change. She took out the folded case sheet, the one with the dates and the accounts, and she added a new line at the bottom. A secure device, ordered from Seoul, confirmed by courier, not delivered. She underlined "not delivered" twice. If the money leaving the account meant someone was pulling it, then the device not arriving meant someone was blocking it. 2 shapes of the same hand. She was starting to see the hand. The auction came on the 8th day, as the black number promised. She was awake before the cars. She had dressed in the charcoal wrap dress, the flats, her hair pulled back and pinned because there was no one left to do it properly, and she would not go down looking undone. She stood at the top of the drive as the first vehicles slowed at the gate to read the placard, then turned in. They came in good coats and bad ones, men with tablets, a woman with a clipboard and a lanyard. Walter Brennan arrived in his brown sedan and set up a folding table on the front steps of her house, and Amara watched him unlatch the brown briefcase and lay out papers on the stone where she used to leave her keys. He looked up and saw her. "Mrs. Lennox." "Lennox Bennett," she said. You're within your rights to observe. He clipped his ID to his lapel. You're not within your rights to interfere. I know exactly what my rights are now. She had learned them the hard way, one closed door at a time. I'm not here to interfere. I'm here to watch who takes it. The bidding was quick and cold. It moved in a language of raised hands, and small numbers called out flat. Her house, the 20-seat table, the west wing, the drive she was standing on, went in under 11 minutes to a holding company represented by a young man who never once looked at the building. He bid from his phone. He won from his phone. He shook Walter's hand and left before noon. Amara did not cry in front of them. She had decided that days ago, and she held to it. She stood at the top of the drive with her arms crossed, and she memorized the young man's face, the way you memorize a thing you intend to find again. A few of the bidders lingered after. One woman in a good coat wandered close to the steps, tablet under her arm, and looked at Amara with the frank curiosity people give a thing at auction rather than a person at a funeral. "Were you the owner?" the woman asked. "I lived here. Beautiful bones. Somebody let it go, though." The woman clicked her tongue. "Payments stopped in the spring," the filing said. "Shame." "Somebody stopped them," Amara said. The woman blinked, not following, already bored, and drifted back toward her car. Amara watched her go. Somebody stopped them. She had said it out loud for the first time, and hearing it in the air changed nothing about the house, and everything about the shape in her head. Nobody let this go. Somebody took it, one lapsed payment at a time, and dated the taking to March so it would read like neglect. She filed the woman's careless words with the rest of her evidence and turned back to Walter. When the last car pulled out, Walter folded his table. "You have until end of day tomorrow to remove personal property," he said. "After that, anything left is the buyer's." How generous. "It's the standard grace period." He said it without irony. He handed her a single sheet. "Sign here to acknowledge you received the vacate notice." She read it top to bottom, which she now did with everything. Then she signed, not because he told her to, but because the date on it started her clock, and she wanted the clock. She wanted to know exactly how many hours she had. He got in the brown sedan and left her standing on a drive that wasn't hers. She had one day. She spent it moving. She pulled the 2 hard suitcases from the closet, the good ones, and she filled them with the things that were hers and small enough to carry, the case sheet, the envelope of consignment cash from the study drawer, her documents, 2 changes of clothes, the velvet box in the inside zip pocket of her bag, where it had lived since the 6th day, riding against her hip like a second heartbeat. She left the furniture. She left the empty frames on the walls. She left the West Wing with its dead heating and its 30 days overdue bill that the money had been paid for and never reached. She walked the house once, room by room, not to say goodbye, but to be sure she'd forgotten nothing she could use. At the front door she stopped and looked back down the hall. Then she carried the suitcases out to the car. The car was hers, outright, the one thing on this property no lien had touched. She loaded it in the dark. She slept in it that first night, parked in the drive she no longer owned. The seat reclined, her coat over her like a blanket, the velvet box under her palm. In the morning, she moved the car to the road outside the gate. Because of the promise, she turned it over in her mind, the way you test a floorboard before you trust your weight to it. 6 months ago, at the airport, before Seoul, he had held her wrist and told her a thing. Not a text, not a lawyer's line, his actual voice, low, the koi at his collar catching the light. "If anything ever goes wrong, don't run. Don't chase me across the world looking. Stay where I can find you. I will always come back to this gate." This gate. He had said it like a man who meant to keep it, and every message since had told her to handle the house and stop asking, and now the house was gone. But the gate was still here, the iron, the stone posts, the black number stapled to it. If he came back, if he ever came back, this was the coordinate he'd given her. This was the one place he'd promised to look. So she would not go to a motel. She would not go to the city. She would not put herself somewhere he didn't know to find. She would stay at the gate, exactly where he said, and she would let him find her keeping her half of a bargain he might already have broken. She knew how it looked. A woman living in a car on a road, guarding an empty house that belonged to strangers now. She didn't care how it looked. Looking was for people who still had something to protect. The car lasted 6 days. On the 7th, a man from the leasing company, the car was financed, it turned out, one more thing Darcy's accounts had quietly stopped paying, came with a flatbed and papers she couldn't argue with. She read them. They were real. The payments had lapsed in March. Everything lapsed in March. "I need my things out of it," she told the driver. He was decent about it. He waited while she pulled the 2 suitcases and the coat and the folded blanket. He didn't watch her too closely, which was its own kindness. Then he winched the car onto the bed and drove it away, and Amara stood on the shoulder of the road with 2 suitcases and a blanket and the velvet box, and she had nowhere left that moved. She looked at the gate. Then she carried the suitcases to it, and she set them down against the stone post, on the ground, in the grass gone long along the base of the wall. She sat on the flat one. She put the blanket around her shoulders. She faced the road. This was the coordinate. She would keep it from the ground if she had to. The first night on the ground was the longest of her life, and she had lately had some long ones. The cold came up through the suitcase and into her. Cars passed and slowed, and did not stop, and she was glad they did not stop. She kept the box in her fist inside her coat, and she watched the road and she counted, because counting was a thing she could do with nothing, and she had nothing. By the 3rd day she had a routine. Water from the spigot on the far side of the wall, which the new owners hadn't shut off yet. Bread from the last of her cash, bought at the gas station a mile down and rationed. She kept a heel of it wrapped in a napkin in her bag at all times, where the box was, because she had learned that food you could see was food you might not have tomorrow. She did not decide to start hiding bread. She simply noticed, one afternoon, that she already was. Her dress had begun to go. A seam at the shoulder gave first. Dust worked into the hem and stayed. Her hair, without pins she could keep track of, came loose into the curls it wanted to be, and she stopped fighting it. Her face in the spigot water was thinner than her face had been. She looked at it once and then stopped looking. She did not look like a woman who had lived in a 20-seat house. She looked like a woman before that house. She recognized the woman. She'd been her once, before any of it, and had not thought she'd see her again. On the 5th day on the ground, a car she knew came down the road and stopped. It was old and brown and careful, and it pulled onto the shoulder, and the door opened, and Gloria Whitfield got out in a plain brown coat and a gray dress, no apron, no white collar, her salt and pepper hair in its low bun, and her reading glasses on their beaded chain, and she stood in the road and looked at Amara sitting on a suitcase against the gate, and her tired, kind face did a thing that faces do when they have prepared for bad and found worse. "I told you," Gloria said. Her voice was not steady. "I told you I'd come back when it got bad." Amara stood up. The blanket slipped off one shoulder. "It got bad. I can see that." Gloria crossed the road. She did not fuss. She did not reach for her the way people reach for the fragile. She stopped a step away and looked at the gate, the placard still stapled there, the number that had done its work, and then she looked at the suitcases and the wrapped bread showing at the top of the open bag. "You're sleeping here," he said. "This gate." Amara heard how it sounded and said it anyway. He said, "If anything ever went wrong, stay where he could find me. He said, "This gate, Gloria," so I'm at the gate. Gloria was quiet a moment. A lesser woman would have argued. A lesser woman would have said, "The house is sold and the man is gone, and no husband is coming, and you'll die of the cold guarding stone for strangers." Amara watched her decide not to say any of it. "All right," Gloria said instead. "Then we make the gate livable." "You don't have to. I know what I have to do and what I don't." Gloria set her own bag down on the grass beside the suitcases. Deliberate, the way you plant a flag. "I raised 3 children in 2 rooms with less than this. Sit down before you fall down. When did you last eat something that wasn't gas station bread?" Amara didn't answer, which was an answer. "That's what I thought." Gloria pulled a thermos from her bag and a foil packet, still warm, and she made Amara sit back on the suitcase and eat, and she stood over her while she did it the way she'd stood over her in the kitchen a lifetime ago, when Amara was new to the house and didn't know yet what she'd married into. "Why?" Amara said around the food. "You took 1 month's pay and gave the rest back. You don't owe this house anything. You don't owe me. Don't tell me what I owe." Gloria said it flat, then softer. "I had 3 men in vans take a standing clock out of that hall in June, and nobody stopped them. I stood at that door and let it happen, because I was told to. I'm not letting things happen at this gate anymore." She looked down the empty road, both directions. How long since you heard his actual voice? Not a message, his voice. 6 months. Amara set the foil down. There was a device. A secure line, from Seoul, for me. A courier confirmed it. It never came. Gloria's eyes sharpened behind the reading glasses. It never came. Ordered and confirmed, and not delivered. Amara said the words she'd underlined. Same as the money. It leaves. It doesn't arrive. "Then somebody's standing between," Gloria said, the way somebody stood in that hall and took a clock. She lowered herself onto the second suitcase, slow, her knees complaining, and she settled her coat around her, and she faced the road the way Amara faced the road, and she did not get up. So we watch the gate, both of us. 2 sets of eyes see a car coming sooner than one. Amara looked at the woman who had come back with warm food to sit on a suitcase in the dirt beside her, and something in her chest that had been clenched for 8 days loosened 1 notch, and she did not name it, because naming it would have undone her, and she could not afford to be undone. 2 sets of eyes, she said. That's right. Gloria pulled the beaded chain, folded her glasses, tucked them away. Now, tell me everything you wrote on that paper. Start at March. And Amara, sitting on the ground she'd chosen, at the gate he'd named, with the 1 person left who'd chosen her back, reached into her bag, passed the wrapped bread and the velvet box, and drew out the folded case sheet, and began to read the dates aloud into the cold, because somewhere a hand was pulling money and blocking devices, and standing between a man and his wife, and she meant to have the whole shape of it drawn before that hand made its next move. Down the road, a mile off, a black car she didn't see slowed at the mouth of the drive, idled a moment with its windows up, and drove on. The sound came before the light, a low beating in the air, far off, a pulse that Amara felt in her teeth before her ears made sense of it. Gloria heard it too. She lifted her head from the suitcase, hand flat against the stone post, and stared up the road where the black car had gone. "Storm?" Gloria said. Amara looked at the sky. Clear, no cloud that would carry that kind of thunder. The pulse grew. It split the quiet into pieces and swallowed them. Somewhere past the tree line, the beating became a shape, and the shape became a machine, black against the pale morning, dropping toward the far pasture behind the sold house. A helicopter. Amara stood. The blanket slid from her shoulders and pooled in the grass. She did not run to it. She had learned, in these weeks, that running toward things cost more than it gave. She only stood, one hand on the gate she no longer had a key to, and watched the machine settle behind the wall, where the west lawn used to be hers. Gloria's fingers found her sleeve, the torn one. Whose is that? I don't know. But she did know. She knew the way you know a voice through a wall before a single word comes clear. 6 months of silence had taught her not to trust that knowing. She held it down. The rotor wound down. The beating slowed, thinned, stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but birds returning to the hedge, confused, and the tick of cooling metal drifting over the wall. Then footsteps on gravel. More than one set, heavy boots, and under them a lighter, precise tread that Amara's body recognized before her mind allowed it. 2 men came around the corner of the wall, where the drive met the road. The first was enormous. Shaved head, black turtleneck, black gloves, an earpiece with a coiled wire, moving with the flat watchfulness of a man who checks corners out of habit. His eyes swept the road, the ditch, the gate, and landed on the 2 women in the grass and did not soften. The second man Amara had married. He wore charcoal so dark it read as black, a 3-piece suit cut close to a lean body, a silk shirt open at the collar. On the left side of his neck, the koi climbed toward his jaw, dark ink over pale skin, exactly where it had always been. An overcoat hung off his shoulders, without his arms in the sleeves. He carried a flat leather folio under one arm and a small box in the other hand, and he was walking fast, faster with every step, his eyes fixed on the house beyond the gate. He had not seen her yet. He was looking for the house, for the windows, for the woman he had left inside them. Do-hyun, Amara said, his name in her mouth, the old name, the private one, the one she used when the world was small enough to hold only the 2 of them. It came out cracked, unused, a voice that had spoken to nobody but Gloria and a gas station clerk for weeks. He stopped. He turned his head toward the sound the way a man turns toward something he cannot place, and then his eyes found her, and Amara watched the recognition arrive in stages. First, he looked at her the way you look at a stranger, sitting where a stranger should not be. A thin woman on the ground by his gate, wine-brown dress gone gray at the hem, one sleeve hanging from the shoulder seam, hair a wild dark cloud with the burgundy dulled to rust, a face too sharp at the cheek, dark half-moons pressed under the eyes. Then something in the set of her jaw, or the tilt of her almond eyes, reached him. The folio slipped a half-inch under his arm. He caught it without looking. Amara, not a question, a correction, as if the world had shown him the wrong picture and he was refusing it. He crossed the gravel to the gate. The big man moved with him, one step behind, hand drifting toward his own coat, until Darcy lifted 2 fingers and the hand stopped. It was chained. A padlock the new owners had hung there, bright and cheap, held the 2 halves shut. On the left panel, stapled to the wood at eye height, the auction placard curled at one corner, the lot number still black and legible. Darcy looked at the padlock. He looked at the placard. His eyes moved across the case number, the date, already 3 weeks gone, the word auction, in a bureaucrat's typeface, and something happened in his face that Amara had never seen in 6 years of marriage. A stillness that was not calm. A stillness like a held breath in a body that had forgotten how to release one. "Cut it," he said. Han produced a tool from inside his coat, fitted it to the chain, and the links parted with a sound like a small bone breaking. The gate swung inward. It had always swung inward. Amara had walked through it 1,000 times, in heels, in the black satin, in her old life, and now she stepped through it barefoot on the wrong side, because the man opening it had come home to a house that belonged to someone else. Darcy stood in front of her. Close now, she could smell travel on him, cold air and leather, and something clean underneath. He was looking at the sleeve, at the hem, at her bare feet in the dirt. "Where is the house staff?" he said. "Gone." "Where is the car?" "Taken." He looked past her, down the empty drive, at the mansion with its dark windows, and the sold strip the holding company's agent had pasted across the gate lodge. His jaw worked once. "I sent a line," he said. "A secure line. 6 weeks ago. A device, hand-delivered, so I could reach you without." He stopped. "You never answered it. It never came." His eyes came back to her face. "It was confirmed delivered." "A courier called," Amara said. Her voice stayed level. She had rehearsed nothing, and it came out like testimony. "He asked me to sign. He gave a window. 72 hours. I sat at this gate for 3 days and 3 nights. Nothing came. I called back. I got a recording in a language I don't speak, and then I got nothing." Something moved behind his eyes. Fast, gone. Gloria had risen from the suitcase. She stood a little apart, hands folded at her waist, watching the two of them, the way she watched everything now, ready to put her body between Amara and any new harm. "The accounts," Amara said. "You want to ask about the accounts?" "Ask." "Amara, 3 of them went silent in March. The money left and never arrived. The utility company never got the check I wrote. The office in the city told me I was a signatory on 2 accounts instead of 3, as of the most recent restructuring. A man came to this gate in a brown suit with a foreclosure notice because the house was collateral on a loan I never signed for, on a deed with my name forged in ink so good I almost believed I'd signed it myself." She took a breath. It shook. She let it shake. "I sold my dresses. I sold my jewelry. I paid every person who worked for us their full wage out of money I did not have. I lost the injunction because I couldn't put $12,000 in front of a judge for a handwriting expert. They sold the house in 11 minutes to a boy on a phone, and I stayed. Here, at this gate, because you told me to." His face had gone very white around the mouth. "You told me," she said. "Hold my wrist at the airport. You told me, if anything ever goes wrong, don't run, stay where I can find you. I will always come back to this gate." She heard her own voice climbing, and she reeled it back down to something quieter and worse. "So I stayed where you could find me. I slept on the ground where you could find me, and you found me, 6 months late. I believed you were protected." The words dropped into the space between them and did not move. Amara felt them land somewhere below her ribs. She looked at him, at the expensive coat and the platinum watch on his wrist and the box in his hand, and she understood, all at once and completely, what those 4 words meant. "You believed," she repeated. "There were reports." His voice had changed. The Mafia flatness cracked at the edges. "Every week, photographs. You in the garden, you at the market, you—" He stopped because he was watching her face, and her face was telling him something he had not let himself consider on the long flight home. Financial statements, accounts healthy, the house secure, a wife who was safe and did not want to be disturbed while I finished the work in Seoul. "You never called." The line was compromised. "I was told any direct contact would expose you. I was told the safest thing I could do for you was stay away and let the office handle it. And I—" His hand tightened on the box until the knuckles paled. "I believed it. You never came. I am here now. You had 6 months." Amara's eyes were dry. That was the thing that frightened Gloria most, watching, the dryness. "You have a helicopter. You have that man with the earpiece. You have a plane that crosses an ocean in a night. And in 6 months you did not once put your own eyes on your own wife. You read reports. You looked at photographs of a woman in a garden, and you thought that woman was me." He said nothing. There was nothing to say, and to his credit, or his ruin, he did not try. "Show me a photograph," she said. He hesitated. "Show me one. The garden one. The market one. Show me the wife who was safe." Darcy shifted the box to his coat pocket, opened the folio, and drew out a single sheet from a sheaf of many. He held it out. His hand was steady, the way a hand is steady when the man behind it is spending everything to keep it that way. Amara took the paper. She looked at it. A photograph, printed on office stock. A black woman in a bright dress standing at a market stall, half turned, a canvas bag on her shoulder, laughing at something outside the frame. Sunlight, fruit stacked in crates. A summer day. It was her face, her hair, her hands. It was 3 years old. "This is from the market in the old town," she said. "The stall closed 2 winters ago. I wore this dress to my cousin's wedding and gave it away after. I cut my hair shorter than this 18 months ago and grew it back." She looked up. "Somebody took a photograph you already had and told you it was Tuesday." The steadiness left his hand. The paper trembled in her fingers, because his did, at the other end, before he let go of it entirely. Somewhere behind Darcy, out of Amara's line of sight, past the wall where the helicopter sat cooling in the pasture, a man in navy gloves stood beside a black car that had come the long way round, a phone to his ear, listening to a voice on the ground relay what was being said at the gate. He did not smile. He was not a man who smiled. He simply ended the call and looked at the house he had emptied and began, already, to plan the next thing. But Amara did not see him. Amara saw only her husband and the 3-year-old photograph shaking in the space between their hands, and the exact moment the certainty went out of his eyes and left something rawer in its place. "Who gave you these?" Amara said. "The office. The reports came through the office, consolidated. 1 channel for security." "Whose channel?" Darcy's jaw set. She watched him run back through 6 months of trust, weakly and steady, a hand feeding him a wife who did not exist, and she watched him reach the edge of a name and stop there, because saying it out loud would mean it was true. "I will find out," he said, instead. "You believed I was protected," Amara said, one more time, tasting it. "Duhyun." I was on the ground. He looked down at her bare feet, at the dirt worked into the hem of a dress she had worn to rags, at the sleeve hanging by 3 threads from the shoulder of the woman he had married in a garden 6 years ago, in a life where 20 people could sit at their table and every one of them was fed. "How long," he said, and his voice was almost gone, "have you been sleeping here?" Amara did not answer that. She looked at Gloria instead, and Gloria looked back, and neither of them said the number, because the number was the kind of thing that, once spoken, could not be taken back, and both of them had learned the price of things that could not be taken back. Darcy took the small box out of his coat pocket. It was black, lacquered, no bigger than a fist. He opened it with his thumb. Inside, on dark silk, a stone, the color of the wine-dark box she carried against her ribs even now, cut and set and worth more than the house behind him, caught the morning light and threw it back red. "I brought this for you," he said. "From Seoul. I thought—" He stopped. He looked at the ring in his hand and the woman in the dirt and understood the obscenity of the distance between them. "I thought I would put it on your hand, in a house that was still ours." Amara looked at the stone. Then she looked at the heel of bread wrapped in a napkin, visible in the open mouth of the bag at her feet where she had left it, next to the velvet box she had refused, through everything, to sell. "Close it," she said. He did not move. "Close it, Do-hyun." He closed the box. Behind them, the gate stood open on a house that was no longer his, and the koi on his neck climbed toward a jaw clenched so hard the tendons stood, and for the first time in 6 years, Amara watched the quiet one, The man an entire city in Seoul feared to look at directly, stand in front of his wife with a jewel in a box, and no idea, none, what to do with his hands. "I'm going to get you off this ground," he said. "I heard you the last time you told me what to do at a gate." The words hit him harder than the padlock, harder than the placard, harder than the 3-year-old photograph. He absorbed it without a flinch, and the not flinching was its own confession. Gloria stepped forward then, one hand on the suitcase handle, the other reaching for Amara's arm. "There's a thermos in the car," she said quietly, to no one, and to both of them. "She hasn't eaten since the dark." Darcy's head turned toward the older woman, and then back to his wife, and Amara watched him hear that sentence. "She hasn't eaten since the dark." And hold it, and understand that it was true, and that he had a folio full of assets under his arm, and a helicopter in the pasture, and a stone worth a house in his pocket, and that none of it, not $1 of it, could reach backward and put food in his wife's mouth on any of the nights she had gone without. "Han," he said, without turning. His voice had found a new floor, lower and colder, and pointed now at something other than the gate. "Get the car, get the doctor on the phone, and get me the name of every man who touched those reports before they reached my desk." Han was already moving. Amara bent slowly and picked up her bag from the grass. She lifted the strap over her shoulder, over the torn sleeve, and she felt the small, hard shape of the velvet box shift against her side, and the wrapped heel of bread beside it, and she straightened to face the man who had come home too late, with the wrong photograph and the right ring. "I'll go somewhere with a bath and a bed," she said, "because I'm tired, and because Gloria's knees can't take another night on the ground. Not because you told me to, not because of that." She nodded at his pocket, at the box inside it. "I want that understood before I get in any car of yours." "Understood," Darcy said. He did not reach for her. He had learned that much in the last 4 minutes. He simply stepped aside, out of the open gate, and let his wife walk through it under her own power, on her own bare feet, out of the house she had guarded to the last, toward a car she had not chosen, in the pale, full light of a morning 6 months too late. The car smelled of leather and something citrus, and Amara sat with her spine off the seat, her bag on her knees, both hands closed over the strap. Han drove. Darcy sat across from her, angled toward the window, giving her the whole width of the seat. Nobody spoke for the first mile. She watched the gate shrink in the side mirror until the stone post was a gray thumbnail, and then nothing. Gloria rode in front, half-turned, one hand on the seat back where Amara could see it. The city arrived in pieces. First the county road, then a highway, then glass towers stacked against a sky that had gone from pale to hard white. Amara counted the exits without meaning to. Old habit. Always know how far you are from where you started. The hotel had a private drive under a stone canopy. A man in a dark coat reached for her door before the car stopped. Amara opened it herself. She stepped out barefoot onto polished stone and did not reach for anyone. 2 staff at the entrance looked at her feet, then found somewhere else to look. Darcy said one word in Korean, and both of them turned into wood. "No lobby," he told her. "There's a private lift." "I heard you," she said. They went up in a mirrored box. Amara stood in the corner and watched the numbers climb. 22 floors. She held the strap. The velvet box was in the zipped pocket against her hip, and beside it, wrapped in its napkin, the heel of bread. She could feel both through the fabric. The suite took the whole corner of the floor. Windows on 2 sides, the city laid out below like something spilled. A sofa longer than the car. Flowers she hadn't asked for on a table she'd never eat at. Darcy stopped inside the door. Han stayed in the hall. Gloria came in and went straight to the windows and closed the sheer panels one by one until the glare dropped and the room stopped shining. "There's a bath through there," Darcy said. "Food is coming. Clothes." "Stop." He stopped. Amara set the bag down on the arm of the sofa, slow, the way you set down something with a live thing inside it. She kept one hand on it. "I want to be clear about what this is," she said, "before I take anything from you." "All right. I'll take the bath. I'll take the food. I'll take clean clothes, because these are done." She looked down at the torn sleeve, then back up. "I'll take a locked door and a night where nobody drives a truck up to me. That's 4 things. That's all of them." Darcy held still by the door. "I won't sleep in a room with you," she said. "You take another one. Down the hall, another floor, I don't care where. Not this one." "Done. And the ring stays in your pocket." She watched his hand, the one that had gone toward the black box at the gate. "Both rings, the one from Seoul, and whatever you think the old one buys you now. I don't want a stone tonight. I don't want a stone this week." His jaw moved. He said nothing. "And no promises." Her voice stayed level. That was the part she'd practiced in the car, in her head, the whole 22 floors. "The last promise you made me, I slept on top of for a week. So none. Don't tell me you'll fix it. Don't tell me what tomorrow looks like. You don't get to hand me tomorrow. You lost that." For a long moment, the only sound was the building, the low hum of air moving, a city sealed out behind glass. "Understood," Darcy said. "Say it back." He looked at her. Something in his face had gone very still, the koi at his neck rising above the open collar, the small scar through his brow catching the light. When he spoke, it was quiet, each word set down separately, like coins. No bed, no stone, no promise. Bath, food, clothes, a locked door. He paused. "Did I miss one?" "No." "Then that's the arrangement." Amara nodded once. Her legs told her, only now, that they wanted to stop holding her up. She sat on the very edge of the sofa, bag still under her hand. Gloria crossed the room. "Come on, baby, water first." "In a minute." "Now," Gloria said, gentle, and it was the voice that had gotten her to eat off foil at the gate, so Amara stood. The bathroom was bigger than the rented car had been. Marble, a tub sunk into the floor, towels folded like they were for a photograph. Gloria ran the water and tested it with the back of her wrist, and Amara stood in the middle of the tile and started, for the first time, to shake. Not from cold, the room was warm. From the marble being warm under her feet, from the towels, from the fact that a week ago she had been rationing a spigot on the far side of a wall, and now steam was rising off a tub she hadn't paid for. "Don't," Gloria said, watching her face. "Don't do the arithmetic, just get in the water." Amara took the bag in with her, set it on the wide marble lip where she could reach it. Gloria saw and said nothing about it. She undressed with her back to the door. The wine-brown dress came off in a shape that held her, stiff with dust at the hem, and she laid it over a chair instead of dropping it, because a part of her that she couldn't switch off was still keeping inventory of everything she owned. The torn sleeve hung. The water took her to the collarbone. She stayed still and let it. Gloria sat on a low stool by the tub, not looking at her body, looking at her face. "He's out there rearranging the world," she said. "You can hear him on the phone. Let him. I'm not saying trust it." Gloria wrung a cloth. "I'm saying I've watched that man 6 years. I saw his face at the gate. He didn't have that face when he flew out. He believed a photograph," Amara said. The water rippled when she spoke. "He believed a picture instead of driving 1 hour. That's not a face. That's a bill coming due." Gloria didn't argue. She washed Amara's hair the way you'd wash a child's, slow, both hands, and Amara let her head tip back and closed her eyes and did not cry, because crying felt like a thing that would use energy she might need later. She'd learned to hold it at the gate. The body remembers economies. When the water went gray, Gloria let it out and ran it again. Clean. A knock. Gloria went and came back. "Food's here." He put it on the table and took himself out. Didn't linger. Good. Amara stood, and Gloria wrapped her in a robe the color of cream, thick enough to stand on its own, and for one breath, Amara let herself be held inside it. Then she picked up the bag off the marble lip and carried it back out with her. The food was on the low table. Not a feast staged to impress. She noticed that, and filed it. Soup, rice, warm bread in a cloth, a pot of tea, plain things. Someone had told them plain, or he had known. She sat on the floor at the table, rather than the sofa, closer to the plate, and Gloria sat across. She ate slowly at first, then not slowly. Her hand shook on the spoon, and she steadied it against the bowl and kept going. Halfway through, she made herself stop, put the spoon down, breathe. You could hurt yourself, going too fast after going too long without. She knew that too. Darcy did not come in to watch her eat. She noticed that also, and hated a little that she noticed, that she was still grating him. When she'd had enough, she sat back. There was bread left in the cloth, 2 rolls, whole, still warm. Her hand moved before her mind ruled on it. She took 1 roll and folded it into a paper napkin, square, then square again, the way she'd wrapped the heel at the gas station, and reached over and slid it into the open mouth of the bag, down beside the zipped pocket, beside the velvet box. Gloria watched her do it. Said nothing. Her eyes went shiny and she blinked it back and reached for the tea. "I know," Amara said quietly, not looking up. "I know there's a kitchen. I know I can ring a phone and food comes. I know. I didn't say a word. My hand doesn't know it yet." She pressed the napkin down flat inside the bag so it wouldn't show. "It'll take longer than the bath to teach my hand." She zipped the main compartment halfway, leaving the bread its air, and set the bag against her leg on the floor, where it touched her the whole time. The door opened without a knock, and she went rigid, but it was only Darcy, and he stopped the moment he saw her face, and stayed by the door. "The doctor's here," he said. "In the hall. Only if you want. He doesn't come in unless you say. I'm not hurt." "You haven't eaten in." "I just ate." In front of Gloria. "Ask her." Gloria said nothing, which was its own kind of answer, and Amara shot her a look. Darcy stood with his hand on the doorframe. "You've lost weight, I can see from here," he said. "Your ankle is swollen. You've been sleeping on the ground. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let a man take a pulse." Amara looked at the swollen ankle she'd stopped feeling 3 days ago. She looked at her own wrist, thinner than the watch he wore. "He takes the pulse in this room," she said. "With Gloria here, he doesn't touch the bag, and when he's done, he leaves, and you leave with him." "Yes?" The doctor was Korean, older, quiet, and he did exactly what she'd allowed, and nothing past it. Pulse, blood pressure, a light in each eye, 2 fingers on the swollen ankle that made her breath catch. He spoke to Darcy in low Korean at the door. Amara caught the shape of numbers, a word repeated. Darcy's face didn't move, but his hand closed on the doorframe until the knuckles paled. "What did he say?" Amara asked when the door had shut. Darcy came back in. Crossed halfway, no further, reading her line like it was drawn on the floor. That you're dehydrated, that your blood pressure is low, that if you had gone another week on a gas station diet in the cold, he would be having a different conversation. His voice stayed flat, and that was worse than if it had cracked. He asked how long you'd been outside. What did you tell him? I said I didn't know. Something worked in his throat. Because I don't. Nobody at that gate would tell me the number of days. You didn't. Gloria didn't. Amara looked at him. She could have given him the number. She had it. She'd counted every one, the way she counted exits, the way she counted the balance falling. She held it behind her teeth like the last coin in a pocket. No, she agreed. We didn't. He took that. He didn't fight for it. He looked at the bag against her leg, the half-zip, the corner of napkin she thought she'd hidden, and he understood what it was. She watched him understand, watched the exact second his eyes went from the bag to her face, and the flatness broke for just a breath before he pulled it back over himself, like the overcoat on his shoulders. He didn't mention the bread. That she'd remember. Whatever else, he saw it, and he let her keep it, and he said nothing. I'll be one floor up, he said instead. Han stays on this floor, in the hall, all night. Not at your door, at the end of it. If you don't want him there, he goes to the lift. The hall's fine, she surprised herself saying it. Not the door. The end of the hall. Yes. He moved to go, then stopped, one hand on the frame again. She waited for the promise. She could feel it building in the room, the shape of it, the thing men like him reached for. I'll make this right. I'll get it all back. Give me time. She had the refusal ready in her mouth. He didn't reach for it. There's a phone by the bed, he said. It rings one number, mine. You never have to use it. Then he was gone, and the door clicked, and she heard him say something to Han in the hall, low, and heard the heavy man settle into a chair too far away to hear her breathe. Gloria let out a long breath and sat back against the sofa. Well, she said. Amara didn't answer. She got up and walked the room, once, slow, checking it the way she'd checked the mansion the last night, where the doors were, which one she hadn't seen him open. There was only the one, and the bath, and a closet with clothes hung in it she hadn't chosen. Plain, deep plum knit, folded soft. Her size. She didn't touch them yet. She went to the window and parted the sheer an inch. 22 floors down, the drive, the stone canopy, the black car still there, Han's world and Darcy's world moving in it. She could not see the gate from here. She could not see the county road or the gas station or the wall with the spigot. All of that was an hour east, under the same hard sky, and the auction placard was still stapled to a fence that belonged to a boy who bid by phone. She let the sheer fall. I'm not staying because he came back, she said to the window, or to Gloria, or to herself. I want that written somewhere. I'm here because my body quit, and yours is 60-something, and I couldn't watch you sleep on the ground one more night. I know it, Gloria said. Tomorrow, I want to see paper. Amara turned. Not his rings. Paper. Who holds the house now? What the boy paid. Where the money went when it left my accounts, and what it did when it got there. He's up one floor rearranging the world. Fine. I want to read the ledger he's rearranging it out of. Gloria studied her. You planning to fight from a hotel suite in a bathrobe? I planned an injunction from a gate. Amara pulled the robe tighter. The address doesn't decide the fight. I do. She sat on the very edge of the enormous bed, the one she'd sleep in alone, and put the bag beside her on the pillow, and unzipped the inner pocket, and took out the velvet box. She didn't open it. She held it in her palm, the small, worn corner of it, the one thing that had traveled from the dining table to the closet, to the study, to the gate, to the ground, to a car she didn't choose, to a suite she didn't ask for. 6 moves. It had survived every one. She set it on the nightstand beside the phone that rang one number. Then she took the wrapped roll out of the bag and set it beside the box, so both things she refused to be without were where she could reach them in the dark. Gloria turned down the lamp. Sleep, baby, she said, from the sofa she'd already claimed, refusing the second bedroom, refusing to be one door further than she had to be. Amara lay on top of the covers, not under them, in the cream robe. Her shoes, that weren't there, pointed at the door out of habit. The city hummed. The bread and the box sat in the low light. Somewhere, one floor up, a man who had believed a photograph was awake with a phone and an army, and more money than the house, learning the names of everyone who had lied to him, and none of it, she knew this now with the flat certainty of the doctor's numbers, none of it could reach backward and pull her off the ground, unsell the house, uncount the days, unteach her hand to hide the bread. He could buy the whole hotel. He could not buy back the week. That was the bottom. She lay in it, dry-eyed, and did not reach for the phone, and outside the sealed glass, the hard white sky finally went dark over a gate, an hour east, where the placard still held, and she closed her eyes on the two small things on the nightstand and waited to see what the morning made her. The morning made her hungry, and it made her exact. Amara woke before the sun cleared the sealed glass, and did not lie there wondering. She sat up on top of the covers, put her feet on the warm floor, and reached first for the two things on the nightstand, the velvet box, the bread wrapped in its napkin, both where she'd left them. She held the box a moment, then set it back without opening it, and carried the bread to the closet. The deep plum knit dress hung there in her size. She put it on, not for him, for the day of paper she'd promised herself the night before. A dress you could sit and read in, a dress you could argue in. Gloria was already up on the sofa, folding the blanket into a square. She looked at the dress and said nothing, which was its own kind of approval. "I want the ledger," Amara said. "Whatever he's rearranging upstairs, I want to see it before he decides which pages I'm allowed to hold." "He's awake," Gloria said. "The big one's been in the hall since 4. They went up one floor. Han opened the door before Amara touched it. Inside, Darcy stood over a long table covered in printed reports, weekly folios, 6 months of them, fanned in date order, slate gray shirt, open collar, the koi at his neck, no jacket. He'd been at this all night. There was a second stack, thinner, that he'd turned face down. "Show me the photographs," Amara said, not the greeting he expected. He heard the whole day in it. He turned the thin stack over. On top was the market picture she'd already read to him at the gate. The closed stalls, the borrowed dress, the old haircut. Under it, more. A woman in a garden. A woman at a mailbox. A woman laughing at a table with her back half to the lens. Amara went through them the way she'd gone through the case sheet, standing, one hand flat on the table. "This one," she said, sliding the garden picture out. "The roses. Those bushes came out 2 summers ago. Frost killed them, and I never replanted." She set it aside. "This mailbox is the old brass one. It rusted through. I paid a man to hang the black one before Do-hyun's second trip." Aside. "This laugh." She held it longest. "I know the day. It's not this year. It's not last year." She put it down gently, as if it could bruise. "Somebody had a folder of me, and every week they took one out and called it Tuesday." Darcy's jaw moved. "There's more than the pictures." He pulled a single sheet from the middle of the report stack and laid it where she could read it. A transcript, message logs, 2 columns, dates down the side. She recognized the left column first, her own words, the ones she'd sent into 6 months of silence. "Managed by whom? Where is the secure line? The house went to auction. Answer me." And on the right, replies, cold ones, lawyer's cadence, the ones she'd been reading for half a year as her husband's voice. "I never wrote those," Darcy said. Amara read the right column twice, then a third time, slower, the way she read anything that mattered. "You signed them," she said. "You never sign. 6 years, you never signed a single message. And then suddenly, every one of these ends in your name." She looked up. "I told myself you'd changed in Seoul, that the distance made you formal." Her voice stayed level, and that was worse than if it hadn't. I was reading a stranger and grieving my husband at the same time. The line I sent you 6 weeks ago, Darcy said. Han pulled the courier record last night. It was signed 4 miles from the gate, by a man in navy gloves, working out of the city office. He set another page down. The same office consolidated the reports. The same office moved the disbursements in March. One hand, one name. He didn't say it yet. He was waiting to be sure she was ready to hear it standing up. Han crossed the room and put a phone on the table, screen up. A photograph, not old, not borrowed. A man at a car door. Long, narrow face, hollow cheeks, hair slicked back with gray at the temples, thin rimless glasses, black leather gloves, navy suit. Choi Tae-sung, Darcy said. My right hand for 9 years. Amara looked at the face a long moment. She was memorizing it the way she'd memorized the boy at the auction who bid by phone, filing it. Navy gloves, she said. The device that never came. The device that never came. The signature on the deed, she said. Someone studied my hand. Someone patient. Someone close enough to have my papers in front of him for months. She touched the transcript. He didn't just steal. He wrote us to each other. He built a marriage out of our worst assumptions and let us live in it. His father ran the Seoul accounts before me, Darcy said. I moved the old man out 3 years ago. Quietly, I thought. With respect, I thought. His hands stayed flat on the table. Tae-sung smiled through all of it. And then he spent 3 years turning my money into a war and my wife into a photograph. Amara set the transcript down and pressed 2 fingers against it, holding it flat, as if it might curl back into the lie it had been. She thought of the night she'd read. Stop asking questions about the accounts. And told herself the coldness was soul, was work, was a marriage stretched thin across an ocean. She thought of answering, managed by whom? Into a silence she'd believed was his. 9 years, she said. You trusted him 9 years, and he sat close enough to copy my handwriting off the checks I signed for the staff. She looked at the slick, narrow face on the phone one more time. That's not greed. Greed takes the money and runs. He wanted your chair, and he wanted us to hate each other while he took it. He wanted the marriage to rot before the money did. Amara sat down, not because she was weak, because she wanted the reports at eye level. She pulled the March folio toward her, then April, then May, laying them like a hand of cards she already half knew. He needed you to believe I was safe, she said, so you'd stay in Seoul and out of the numbers. And he needed me to believe you'd gone cold, so I'd stop asking loud questions and just drown. She turned a page. It almost worked. It worked on you completely. You flew home with a jewel and asset papers for a woman he'd convinced you was sitting in a warm house. She didn't say it to wound. She said it because it was the shape of the thing. You believed I was protected. You never once looked with your own eyes. No, Darcy said. I didn't. That's the part money can't buy back. I know. She let that sit. Then she did the thing that broke his plan, though she said it plainly, without knowing yet that it was the crack in everything. He got one thing wrong. She tapped the gate on a photograph. The stone post, the placard, the ground. He wrote me leaving. In his version, I ran. Signed for the house I never signed for. Took a settlement, disappeared. That's the story he sold Seoul, isn't it? That the wife abandoned the marriage and the boss couldn't hold his own house. She looked at Darcy. But I stayed exactly where you told me to. On the ground, at the gate. For every one of the days nobody in this room will say out loud. Her mouth was steady. There's a witness he couldn't forge. Me. Still there when you landed. Darcy stood very still, and this time it was not the stillness of a man absorbing loss. It was the stillness of a man who'd just been handed a weapon. Say that again, he said. He built his whole story on me being gone. Amara closed the folio. I wasn't gone. That's not a feeling. That's evidence. The auction record, the vacate notice I signed to the day, the water I drank from a spigot 4 feet inside a wall his men were watching. All of it puts me at that gate the entire time. His report to Seoul says I left in April. She met his eyes. One of those is a lie you can prove. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Darcy turned to Han and spoke in Korean. Fast, and Han was already at the door. But it was Amara who caught the last strike, and she caught it because she'd spent a week learning the exact machinery that had buried her. She pulled the current disbursement folio toward her. That morning's, the live one. The numbers Darcy's people were still untangling. She read the way she'd learned to read in ruin, down the transfer codes, the consolidations, the routing that moved money out of one account so it never arrived in another. She'd seen this pattern. She'd lived inside it since March. Her finger stopped. This one's moving now, she said. Today, this morning. She turned the page toward Darcy without looking up. This isn't a report. This is a transfer in progress. He's pulling the reserve, the account you'd use to restructure, out through the city office before you can freeze it. Same route as the deed lien. Same entity. She read the timestamp. It executes at market open, 19 minutes. Darcy looked at the page and then at her. My people flagged nothing. Your people are reading it as a scheduled consolidation. It's the word he taught everyone to skip past. Consolidation. She was already writing on the back of the folio, the account strings, the receiving entity, the time. It's the same trick he used on my utility check. Money leaves, money never lands. Except this time it's not a house payment. It's your ground under Seoul. She held the page up. Block the receiving entity, not the source. He's expecting you to freeze the source. Kill the destination, and the money has nowhere to go, and the instruction sits there with his authorization on it. In writing. To leadership. Darcy took the page. He read it once. Then he gave it to Han and said 3 words. And Han was on the phone in the hall, and the 19 minutes started to burn. How did you see it? Darcy said. Not doubt. Something closer to awe he was too disciplined to show. Because he did it to me first, Amara said. For 6 months. On a smaller number, with a smaller woman he thought would never learn to read it. She set the pen down. I learned to read it on the ground. She'd learned it hungry, is what she didn't say. She'd learned the word. Consolidation. The way you learn the name of the thing that's killing you. From a man on a cream card who told her to take it up with her husband. She'd learned. Default. And. Lien. And. Injunction. From a lawyer who wanted $12,000 she didn't have. She'd read the case sheet aloud to Gloria at a stone post, until the routing of stolen money was as familiar as a grocery list. He'd meant the ruin to break her. He'd taught her the exact machine instead. He should have let me stay comfortable, she said. A comfortable woman doesn't count the days. She doesn't read the transfer codes twice. He starved me smart. They waited. Gloria stood by the window with her hands folded. Han's voice in the hall rose once, dropped, went quiet. At 11 minutes he came back and gave one nod. Held, Darcy said. The destination's frozen. The instructions stranded with his key on it. Then it's not your word against his anymore, Amara said. It's his own transfer, mid-air, signed. And a wife who never left the gate to contradict the story he sold. She looked at the photograph of the narrow face one more time. Send it to Seoul before he can call it a mistake. Darcy did. It took the rest of the morning, and none of it happened in that room, but Amara watched the shape of it through the doors. Han moving, calls in 2 languages, a folio couriered out under seal. By afternoon, a man in navy gloves, 4 miles away, stopped answering his phone, because there was no longer anyone in Seoul willing to take his call. The father he'd meant to avenge did not get his throne back. The son who'd forged two people into strangers was removed from every account, every office, every room, the way a name is struck rather than mourned. Darcy did not tell her the details of how. She did not ask. Some machinery she was content to leave in the dark. What she watched instead was what he did after. He didn't bring her the jewel. The lacquered box stayed wherever he'd put it. She never saw it again, and understood, without a word passing, that he'd finally heard her. He restructured the whole of it to pull himself out of Seoul, and it cost him more than the war had, and he did it anyway. Then he had Walter Brennan's holding company, traced to its phone-bidding boy, bought the house back at a number that made the boy vanish, and did not move into it. Instead, he had the deed redrawn. When he laid it on the table, it was not a gift wrapped in apology, it was her name alone. Amara Lennox Bennett, sole title, the gate and the ground and the 20-seat table and every empty frame. Not a present, he said, before she could refuse it. Recognition. You held it when I wasn't there. It was never mine to give back, only to stop occupying. She read the deed the way she read everything. It was clean. Her hand, real this time, would be the only one on it. I'll take it, she said, because I earned it on the ground, not because you're sorry. I know the difference now, he said. She used it. She didn't move back into the house to haunt it. She took the title and the small, sharp thing she'd learned reading ledgers in the dust, and she built with it a property and hospitality firm, luxury restorations, houses other people had lost turned back into houses, the whole engine that had once been used to strip her turned around in her hands. She wore the burgundy the way armor is worn, the $12,000 handwriting expert she'd never been able to afford. She hired him herself, for a case that was already won, and paid him in full, because she wanted the forged signature named on paper in her own files, closed. Darcy stayed near without occupying. He never made another promise. He'd watched what one promise had cost her on the ground, and he'd decided actions were the only currency he still had the right to spend. But she noticed, she was built to notice, that there was always food within her reach now. A bowl on the counter, bread on the sill of whatever room she worked in. He never mentioned it. Her hand still took bread sometimes, and folded it into a napkin before her mind caught up, and when it did, the bread was already there, unremarked, replaced. He'd seen the napkin in the hotel, and said nothing then. He said nothing now. He just kept the reach full. The velvet box she never sold. She opened it, finally, one evening, and looked at the ring he'd given her on an ordinary Tuesday a year into the marriage, before the house, before Seoul, before the man in navy gloves. She didn't put it on. She set it back in the box and kept the box, because it had survived every move she had, and that was the thing it was for. In the spring, she drove to the old gate. She'd owned it for months and hadn't gone. Darcy met her there because she'd told him to, not asked. The chain was long gone. The placard was long gone. The stone post stood where she'd sat on a suitcase in the dark. He stood on the road where his worst failure was written into the ground, and she stood on the grass where she'd survived it, and neither of them pretended it was anything else. You could live anywhere, he said. I know. You could leave. I know that too. She looked at the gate, then at him, and the choice was entirely, finally hers. No debt, no promise, no drowning, no story anyone had forged. I'm staying, because I want to. That's a different thing than the last time I was here. He nodded. He didn't reach for her. He'd learned that too. The gate had been his empire's proof and her ruin. Now it was only a gate on land, with her name on the deed, and a woman standing on it who could not be moved because no one was moving her. He had conquered a war he never saw coming, and reclaimed a throne across an ocean, and bought back a house worth less than a jewel he never handed over. He conquered an empire while losing the only woman he never wanted to rule. If you want to watch all the stories without any ads and also get access to bonus scenes, extended epilogues, and exclusive spicy chapters, head over to our Patreon. Scan the QR code on the screen. The link is in the description or in the pinned comment. See you there. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever waited at a gate for someone the whole world told you had abandoned you? When everything was sold and gone, did you still guard one small thing no one could buy from you? And when the truth finally surfaced, did staying in your place become the proof no one could deny? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about loyalty, dignity, and hidden truth, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.